Hartmut Issel is head of APAC Equity at UBS Global Wealth Management. Hartmut, great to have you with us here. Thanks very much for your time. Prashant here. We're still kind of waiting for answers. I think markets are waiting for answers, even as those tariffs go into effect today. And of course, I think the other big thing is, will China re-retaliate after the 104% tariffs go into effect on them? What's the way to think about markets now, Hartmut?
Yeah, I think there's two phases. Right? The first phase is maybe call it 3 months, maybe it's 4 or so, where these negotiations are being put in place. Right? This is pretty much something we know already. The numbers have been put out as of later today. Then we're also going to normally see the U.S. actually taking these actions. And what that means is, though, right, unless anyone assumes that the U.S. administration wants to keep tariffs for the next 20 years or so, more likely they want to achieve deals, right? So they have to put these things in place now. And of course, that takes a bit of time, right? It takes weeks, it takes potentially months, but nonetheless, we think that around the third quarter, we're starting to see more sort of first negotiation details, right? And when that happens, you will ultimately see that the peak, which is probably reached relatively soon, maybe not quite yet, but relatively soon, the peak on the tariff side then also starts to come down a little bit afterwards. So from the third quarter on, we expect that probably the biggest level of uncertainty is already past us. So yeah, maybe we need to give.
Hartmut, so third quarter. I think we just lost that line with him. Do we have Hartmut? Okay, we'll go back to that call. What he's really saying is that expect clarity on tariffs by the third quarter, which is a fair assessment because all these hectic parleys have begun now. The South Koreans are supposed to strike some sort of a trade deal as well. Vietnam has cut tariffs already. EU is sort of blowing hot, blowing cold. They're saying we can retaliate, but we can also strike a deal. So that's the point that UBS is making, that by third quarter, we should have more clarity. The question is then, in the interim, what do markets do? Will markets continue to linger? Will they continue to be range-bound till there is that clarity, until we have a real assessment of the economic impact? Or will markets just resume their, their winning ways all over again? So let's... Hartmut, so we got your point. You're saying that there'll be finality and clarity by the third quarter. The question is, in the interim, what do you expect markets to do? 20% off the peak on U.S. equities. Asia has been sliding. So from now till the third quarter, till we get that clarity, what do you expect in financial markets?
Yeah, and a very near term, as we heard also before, right? So now it depends to see what China does. But you see, we have seen these things before also with other countries, right? This is not the first day that we're seeing these kind of developments, right? And we have seen also with other countries, right? There seems to be a large number. Then all of a sudden, it transpires that there have been talks, maybe more on the informal side, right? And some ideas are being put in place, right? And then tariffs are either sort of postponed before they start, or maybe they even completely taken off, right? So even in the last couple of weeks, we have seen these kind of situations. So therefore, I wouldn't take too much heavy uncertainties into consideration. But China is one, and we'll see what the Europeans do. These two are probably the most important ones, because we know that, let's say, in the rest here in the region, right, in Asia, outside China, we think everybody from Japan to potentially also Korea, including India, by the way, we think there is not apparently a willingness for retaliation, but more for a sooner start of negotiations. So that might also help the markets.
Hartmut, very quickly before we let you go, so do you think India comes out stronger, and do you think India is better placed?
Yes, I mean, if I look at the tariff rates, if we compare to also others, also here in Southeast Asia, it's actually still one rate where it is what it is right now. But at least normally it wouldn't go higher, right? So we do know that there shouldn't be retaliation happening. We also do know that there is probably an attempt to strike a bilateral deal with the U.S. Maybe it takes until the end of this year, but nonetheless, right, this is on the way. So I would argue, right, and also given that as we had expected, right, the services side, it's only goods really on the tariffs, right? It's not the services side. So IT service companies that are listed in India, right? They are off the hook as we had expected. So the only risk that arguably is still remaining a little bit, because there's not only reciprocal tariffs, right? This is on the countries. There's also product tariffs, right? And of course, if we look at the listed space, so Nifty in India, the one that has maybe a little bit of risk is pharma, of course, right? Although it could also be, even if the pharma tariffs come, but it could be more channeled towards drugs, whereas very high margins, right? The generics or more companies like we find in India, the margins are much lower. As a matter of fact, lower than the tariff rate. So that would be an issue maybe also for the US. So let's hope that doesn't happen. But even if it does happen, right, there's maybe one day where there's new pricing, but then India should be really done. So I'm quite positive for, say, towards the end of the year also on the Indian market.
Okay.
All right, Hartmut, thank you very much for that.